Is Texas for real? Is Coach Prime redefining college football? Has Dabo Swinney lost his touch? We've got a lot to get into, so let's get to it. This is College Kickoff Eve. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to College Kickoff Eve. This is the Week 2 version of College Kickoff Eve. This is the Iceman, Matt Freight's a little bit under the weather, and that is the coach, Brad Powell. Brad, welcome to the live show, my man. Good to see that face.
Iceman, heck yeah. Here we are, Week 2, right, of the football season. Well, third week of games, Week 2 officially. I think this week we finally have some better matchups, right? There were a couple good games last week, but a lot of teams were still kind of playing what I like to call their tune-up games. So I think the rubber is going to meet the road this week in a few of these matchups, man. I'm pumped.
Oh, me too. And I have to apologize to everybody who is listening. I am a little under the weather. This is the second week in a row that Brad and I have not been able to record our regular show. And it's funny because it's been due to sickness. You were not sick. I was sick. And I think you can kind of tell that I'm not my normal self. Although I do like this bass in my voice. I feel like I could get a little Barry Manilow here.
Well, yeah, and you know what we're doing? We're doing what these guys do every week when they go out and play on Saturday. We're overcoming a little bit of adversity, right? You're toughing it out,
Man,
and
Campbell
you're playing
style.
hurt, man. You're playing hurt. Yeah, freaking MCDC would be so proud of you right now.
I know. And you know where I caught it? I caught it from those pesky college kids at Blacksburg because, as you know, I was there last weekend, got to see the game. Actually, I posted Enter Sandman on our YouTube page, so go and check that out if you haven't subscribed yet. It was a lot of fun. And then I came back, I started to feel a little bit weird. And Wednesday, I was just done. And it's funny, I was like, those damn college kids and their germs.
Yeah, no kidding. And well, just being in a big crowd of people, right? I mean, what, probably 100,000 people, I'm guessing, all in total, perhaps.
You mean game and downtown and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, because Lane Stadium's like 66,000. I think that's the capacity. It seems like a lot more because of how it's laid out, but it's one of the smaller, quote unquote, stadiums in the Power Five. But yeah, it's just about being around a lot of people. But I'll tell you what, it was a special, special weekend getting to go back there. I know I waxed nostalgia last week about it, but I don't think I was really prepared for how emotional I was going to feel being on campus, walking all of the sidewalks in between these buildings. And I looked at my brother-in-law, Mike, and I said, it's been so long since I've been here. I forgot why I fell in love with this place in the first place. And I kind of fell in love with it. You saw some of the photos that I posted on social media, just a beautiful place. And it kind of reminds me of it reminds me of a place that just doesn't exist on this earth with all the buildings looking the way that they are. I know Notre Dame has a very similar look and feel to it in terms of the continuity of how everything looks. And I think that it makes a college feel more special that way than what we talked about last week, like the ones inside the city. I mean, I guess the old ones like Harvard, Yale, the really, really old ones maybe have that colonial feel, but there's just nothing like it. So I was very excited to be able to go back, and the Hokies won, which was somewhat surprising, and they covered. And you know what I say, good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah, they look solid. I mean, they got some stuff they got to clean up, but so does everybody at this point in time in the season. And I think that there's a lot to be optimistic and excited about with Virginia Tech football, especially considering the way the last couple of years have gone. So only up from here, and they're moving in the right direction. They took the first step by getting the W last week, and I'm glad that you got to experience that. And I did. I love the photos you sent, and it's really cool what you said about there is something unique about a college campus, and there's obviously certain campuses that do it better than others. But just the look of the buildings, right? Like the limestone and all that stuff. I mean, it's really neat. And it's just got that historic feel. And it is nice when you go places like that, you feel like you're in a different world almost, right? And that's what makes those places special, especially if you get to spend as much time as you did there as a student, and to be able to go back and kind of re-immerse yourself in that atmosphere is really awesome.
Yeah, and I want to welcome everybody who's watching right now on YouTube or wherever it is that you're watching. And we will be having a special guest here in a minute as this live show, it's live. I mean, it is what it is. And it kind of overlaps some family time. So we will get about a 3-foot visitor here, probably in a few minutes. But you did mention colleges, and I think it's time to do our usual weekly segment where we are calling out some of these colleges. And I know that Jonah's out there, so welcome to him. Per usual, we don't have anybody else who wants to add, so these two schools are looking very, very lonely. But hey, when you're in a race of two, it's pretty awesome that you can be the only two representatives out there. And as Jonah knows, he is going to be picking a college by the end of the season, so hopefully this week will give him a little bit more fuel to the fire. But we just want to remind everybody, if you are watching, even not live, let us know your school in the comments, and we'll be happy to add it to the list. So, my man, here we are. We are coming up on week 2, but let's go over week 1. And boy, I think there's no place that we can start besides how damn wrong we were about Colorado and Coach Prime. And we've been wrong about them numerous times now.
How wrong everybody was. I mean, outside of a few, right? And I think that a lot of people, yes. I'm telling you this right now, the only people that truly believed that Colorado was going to win that football game were the people inside that program. Even the people that picked Colorado, I think it was just more so, let's go against the grain, because if they do win, I'm going to look like a genius type of mentality. Nothing about historical trends, none of the facts pointed towards a Colorado victory. They did not. But I have to give credit where credit's due, man. I am more than happy to eat crow this week, because not only, I mean, the game wasn't as, I feel like the game was not as close as the final score indicated. Now, obviously, Colorado's got some work to do on the defensive side of the football, but oh my goodness, on offense, they are explosive, they are dynamic and talented. And we knew they were going to be talented at the skill positions, but I certainly didn't think they were going to be that talented, or that talent was going to be able to perform at that level this soon.
No, and I still believe that what we said last week and what we had been saying about the hype train and all that kind of stuff, it was completely reasonable. Like, to think that they were going to hit a brick wall the first game is pretty reasonable. And I think going back, I would have said the same thing. The only thing that I think maybe I underestimated was just how much of a leader Deion Sanders is as a coach. And my brother-in-law said it to me. He goes, he's a real leader of men. And I said, not in that Jeff Saturday way that he said it last year to try to convince people that I don't have any coaching experience, but I can do this. Deion Sanders actually does lead those kids. And when you're watching him coach, he's actually coaching. Like, when they made mistakes, he's coaching them. You can tell, but he's not just yelling at them. This is not some CEO like Nick Saban trying to lord over this program. He's trying to get with this team and build them up from the ground up together, right? They're all trying to build together, and they're explosive on offense. The other thing I don't think that people took into account was just how much continuity there would be with some of the most important players. But I still am surprised by the fact that they had 6 penalties. 6. And that's not a lot for a team that had 3 remaining players from last season. I know they were 1-11, but 3, and to have that kind of continuity right out the gate in the first week, it's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I was very impressed, because I thought, if anything, I expected them to possibly be a little undisciplined, right? To lack a little discipline, for there to be penalties. I just thought there'd be it would be a little disorganized. Hold the phone, hit the brakes. We got James with us.
Can you say hi to Mr. Brad?
Hi, Mr. Brad.
Very
Hi,
good.
James.
Yeah. Hey, can you tell Coach Brad what Daddy brought home for you last weekend? What have you been sleeping with in bed? The what?
What?
It begins with an H. Go ahead.
What?
What is it? What is your lovey? What have you been sleeping with and taking to school with you?
What?
You know.
No, you know, too.
The hokey bird.
My hooky bird.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And Mommy taught you the chant. We say, let's go. Go ahead.
Let's go.
And then what?
Honky.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right, buddy. I love you very, very much. Okay.
Okay.
Can you wave goodbye to everybody and say, we'll see you later?
We'll see you later.
All right. I love you, buddy. I'll see you in the morning. Can you take Winston with you too?
That's awesome. Number
Yeah,
one
man.
fan.
Yeah, we got a new fan. Hold on. What's up, buddy? No, you need to go to bed. See, we're doing it live.
This is great. Do it
I know,
live.
isn't it? Yeah, we're doing it live. Can you take Winston with you?
Just see
All
if
right,
he has
don't
any
worry
hot
about it.
takes.
Yeah, he does. Who
But
knows?
I was impressed with their discipline and organization. I really expected there to be penalties, and I thought I love that, man. I
Here he
love
goes.
it.
Woo! There he goes. Yep, he got him to go. All right.
That's great. And I thought that there would be some disorganization, misalignments, and that didn't happen, man. That wasn't the case at all. And
Nope.
you mentioned him coaching those kids. I'll tell you what, this is what I saw. And I've always believed this as a coach. He loves those kids. And I genuinely loves those kids. And I think that I've always said you have to, especially at like the high school levels and like the younger levels, but probably to an extent at the college level, I think in order to really be able to coach people, change people, motivate people in a real meaningful way, you have to love them first. And they have to believe and know that you love them, to be led by you. And like I said, in a very meaningful way. I mean, anybody can kind of fall in line and do what they're told, but I mean, like, to genuinely buy into what the direction of a program, to the culture, all those buzzwords we hear, I think it starts with a genuine love. And I think that they have that for each other. And that's a powerful thing.
100%. And it takes a while usually to build that. And I think I'm impressed by how quickly it manifested. But I do want to be real about this, that I think, and this speaks to the NFL action last night. This is not an NFL show, but I think it's all the same, is we love to take a one-game sample and make an extrapolation about the whole season. And it's just not how it works. I'm rooting for Deion Sanders. I'm rooting for Colorado. I think that it's better for college football if they are better. I said yesterday that the best outcome for this experiment is Deion Sanders coaching across from Nick Saban for the national title. Like, that is the best thing that could possibly happen.
Gosh,
It would be it would be a game that I would probably try to go to. Like, that's how meaningful I think it would be for the sport. And I'm rooting for all of that. But I think that one win that surprises the entire country doesn't mean that all of a sudden this team is going to be in the national spotlight. I just think that they're going to be more dangerous than we expected. And I think that we, the royal we, need to stop taking him for granted and taking him more seriously, because he is a legitimate head coach. He's a legitimate leader, and he's going to continue to ascend everywhere that he goes, because if they let him be himself, the sky is the limit for him.
and hey, they're keeping receipts. I don't know if you heard that or not, but they're keeping receipts. I mean, he was calling them out in the post-game press conference. I mean, just calling the reporters out right then
Unfortunately,
and there, man.
we weren't one of them. That'd have been amazing if he's like, you guys at INC Sports be like, yes, thank you, Deion.
No kidding, man. But you gotta give credit where credit's due. They looked really solid on the offensive side of the football again. And hell, maybe they don't have to play any defense. If you can score like that at will, basically on people, I mean, people are gonna figure it out. Now, there's film out there. I think we're gonna see. It's not gonna look quite like that because people are gonna know what to expect here moving forward a little bit.
I think so.
But you still have to execute. I mean, once you get a couple games into the season, teams know what the other team's running. They have trends. They know what they're doing formationally, but that doesn't matter. When I coach high school football, we 90% of the time we knew what the other team was going to run when they lined up. Doesn't mean we could stop it. Seriously,
right.
Frankly, you still have to be able to execute and make plays, and that comes down to a lot of different things.
I love that.
But and then that's the case at their level too. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what adjustments get made.
And they will get made. I just want everybody to be prepared for that. But for 1 week at least, I think that we can be pleasantly surprised. It was easily the game of the weekend, like not even close. It was amazing to watch, back and forth, and you can't ask for a better game than that. But I do want to point out, my man, that it looks like our recruit is going to be making a little bit of a campus tour so far here. He's going to be going to a UConn football game. I will say, Jonah, that my aunt lives right down the street in East Hartford from where that stadium is. So I hope you enjoy yourself. I think UConn is a sneaky team this year. Who knows? They could be a darling team of the Iceman and Coach show. But I hope that you have a great time. There's nothing like college football, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. Any college football game anywhere is a great experience. And then, it's a freaking big time football program, big time Division I football program. and they've got some things going this year. I think they're moving in the right direction. So who knows, man? You might rethink your Alabama Crimson Tide pick after taking a little UConn football. You never know.
Yeah, he's a pre-enrollment. He can change his mind. But thank you for loving our hats. We do have them for sale in case anybody wants any. You just contact us, Iceman and Coach at gmail.com. If you want to order a hat, we will have those up on the website at some point. But I think Coach Prime was a great thing. But I want to transition to a guy who I think is the opposite of him, and that's Dabo Swinney. So obviously we had Budge on here. And I have to say, I have to give him credit. Budge immediately went to the internets and had a response to that and owned up to it and said that, hey, this is not the team that I picked. I still believe in this team, but this is just a terrible, terrible loss. But I have to ask, man, like, has Dabo Swinney lost his touch? Because he's a guy who doesn't really want to go to the transfer portal. He wants to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm here to tell you, man, if he doesn't get up with the times, he's going to fall behind because he found out right quick the last 2 years that it's hard to go from Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence, and then there is a major chasm after that.
Well, we've talked about it in other instances, like adapt or die. And I think you're seeing that. I don't think you can play things the way that we did 5 years ago in college football. The transfer portal is too powerful. Yes, and everyone else is doing it. So you can't sit there and say, well, you know what, we're gonna do it the old school way. We're gonna build in here from the ground up and organically and all those fancy things. I don't think that's possible this day and age. It just isn't. And one thing that I feel like he's proving at this point is he cannot win without an elite generational quarterback. I mean, because he's yet to do it. And
isn't it funny how that works?
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, like a lot of people can't. So that's not like necessarily an indictment on him as a football coach, because there's a lot of people that struggle to win football games without an elite quarterback. But the fact that they had so much success at Clemson and it's sort of raised the bar. The expectation is high. They're expected to compete for national championships every year, and he's failed to do that post Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, and he's done so in an ACC that hasn't really gotten better on the whole, but
No.
one team did get better, and I think
Yes.
that's the part that is troublesome. But here's the thing, man. Like, they play on the road in their first game, and it's not like they lose a close one, which happens a lot in week one. They didn't even show up. Didn't show up. And I have to wonder if maybe all the Dabo stuff is fun when you're winning, the way that he coaches, his personality, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I get why people like it. And then all of a sudden now they're not winning. And that kind of stuff starts to wear thin very, very quickly. And in this day and age in college football, as you said, you either adapt or die. And if Dabo has another 8-win season, I think he's on the hot seat next year for sure.
Yeah, winning solves a lot of problems. People will overlook all sorts of stuff if you're winning football games. I mean, there are a lot of coaches out there that aren't great people or have different weird personality quirks about themselves, but they win a lot of football games, and so life goes on. The other thing I'll say is that, that wasn't your daddy's Duke football team.
Wait a
you know
minute,
what I mean?
hold up. Time out. What is your daddy's Duke football
Well,
team?
Duke traditionally is not known as a great football program. I mean, they've had years here and there,
Fair.
but overall, it's not traditionally what you'd consider to be a top 25 football program.
Fair.
And this Duke football team is a top 25 team, and they're talented, they're well coached, and they're going to be a problem in the ACC for people. I don't think to the point where they're going to necessarily push to compete in the conference championship, but I think they're going to screw up a lot of other people's opportunity to compete for a conference championship.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's interesting though to watch all this unfold, because one of the reasons Budge really liked Clemson was because they've won in the current paradigm of college football. And here comes Deion Sanders, who everybody doubted because he's not won at a big level in today's college football, and we get the results that we get. But the last thing I want to talk about in week one, outside of the fact that it was mostly chalk because the matchups really weren't that good, but you had to feel so good on Sunday night watching Brian Kelly squirm like a little rat because his team got absolutely not just beaten, not just outplayed, outclassed.
Yeah, I mean, that's big game Brian, man. Like Notre Dame fans are very familiar with what happened on Sunday night because we've seen it time and time again over the last decade plus. And so I think that, watching that game, it was satisfying. It was definitely satisfying. And what I was most curious to see was what his reaction was going to be. And he did what everybody thought he was going to do. He essentially threw the players under the bus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he's always done that though. He did it at Notre Dame too. He's a very unlikable guy. But again, it's one of those things, like I just said, winning smooths a lot of shit over. And when you're winning football games, people just kind of go along with whatever's happening. But the second you start losing games, especially at a school like LSU, and losing in the fashion in which they lost, it's going to cause him some serious problems. It wouldn't surprise me uh, if there were for sale signs in his front yard. You know what I mean? I mean, I saw things on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called now, like fire Brian Kelly. We got to get this guy out of here. I mean, just your
But where are they
typical
gonna go? Like
fan
seriously.
overreaction.
Seriously
Oh,
though, like where
sure.
are they gonna go?
Well,
Who are
and
you gonna get?
he's not a bad football coach. Like I said last
No.
week, he's a good football coach. He's a lousy human being, but he's a good football coach. And yeah, who are you going to get that's better
Urban Meyer
right
is the
now?
only place that you can go from there if you want to get like scum of the earth. Just go straight Urban Meyer. Like sell everything, right? Sell Brian Kelly's house, sell your soul, just sell everything and bring Urban Meyer in and you'll win a national title. It'll be fine.
Well, that's a school that does. Yeah, I don't think LSU has any sort of like moral compass. I don't think they care. Yeah, it doesn't matter. They would hire, I mean, anyone if it meant winning football games. They don't care. I heard an interesting take about Urban Meyer the other day, and that was it was from the wide receivers coach that was with him in Ohio State and Florida, that Zach
Oh.
Smith. He's got his own podcast, and he said that he thinks there's a solid chance that if Harbaugh ends up leaving Michigan to move on to the NFL, that Urban Meyer would take that job in a second, because he would not miss out. He would not skip an opportunity to break it off in Ohio State's rear end. And I mean, just what I can only imagine. I mean, you talk about if everybody thinks these people have loyalty, when it comes to wherever they're at. Yeah, it's all about money. And I don't know how the Ohio State fan base feels about Urban Meyer in general, but if they think that, well, he's an Ohio State guy, he'd never go to Michigan, man, if that check's big enough, he'd be maize and blue all the way.
100%. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, your dad is in the feed. So welcome to Mr. P. Happy to have you back. And with what looks like a reasonable profile picture this time, it looks like a hoodie of some sort. I don't even know. And to Jonah's question, I don't really have any conference winners because it's just too difficult to predict in a lot of ways. But I think after 1 week, you can't really make any type of analysis or judgment on the conferences because not many of these games were conference games to begin with. And there's just too much football to play. Like there's too many games and too many things that could be chaos between now and December. So I would say the answer to that is no. But now
I feel like the two conferences that are like the most up for grabs are the Pac-12 and the Big 12. Like I feel like the SEC, the week to week there will be upsets and team, there'll be upsets in the SEC that people don't see coming, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a couple teams that everyone's aware of: Georgia, Alabama, possibly Tennessee, and LSU may find their way back into it, that are going to be competing for the conference championship. In the ACC, it's most likely Clemson may still manage to get themselves into the conference title game, and obviously Florida State. The Big Ten, more than likely, whoever wins that Ohio State-Michigan game, because the Big Ten West is not good. And so I think, there's one or two teams, 2 to 3 teams in about every other conference, but the Big 12, Pac-12, I feel like it's really, like I said, up for grabs a little bit because there's a lot of teams playing some good football in those conferences.
Yeah, and like I said, these conferences that are maybe top heavy, nothing really has happened to make you feel like anything has changed. So that could change coming into this week. So I want to put up the current rankings that we have going on here. Again, some things have changed. This was as of yesterday, but Colorado, I think, jumping into the top 25, that catches your eye. Obviously, Clemson, I believe, is 25, which is why probably they're not on here. There you go. And other than that, though, a lot of things didn't change. Now, the one thing I thought was interesting, Florida State went up 3 spots, but in my opinion, you could make the argument that they should be the number 2 team in the country after the way that they played against the team that was higher ranked than them. And all these other teams played not great competition, but it is what it is. That's the preseason rankings, as you pointed out last week, get us here where it's hard for a Florida State to jump up so many spots to the number 2 team in the country. But I'll tell you what, they sure looked like the number 2 team in the country last week.
Yeah, they looked really good. I'll tell you, the thing I'm the most impressed by is how far they dropped some of these teams that lost, like them dropping Clemson all the way back to 25. Because that goes against my narrative, right? My narrative's always been like these teams that start high, if you take care of business, you're just going to stay and keep climbing. And if you lose a game, you're just going to fall slightly. I think a lot of it has to do in the way that Clemson lost that game. And then, LSU, they took a big hit as well. So not quite as bad as Clemson did, but I mean, they took a pretty big hit. And I'll give the voters, the AP, I'll give them credit for that because that's not always the case. I think sometimes, especially like the LSUs of the world or the Clemsons of the world, the blue bloods in college football seem to get the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. They're gonna be okay. This is just a one-off. It's a fluke, whatever. So kudos to the AP for that.
Yeah, and I don't have any real scruples with how all that looks right now. I mean, as I said, the teams that dropped that deserve to drop, but the teams that moved up, I mean, when it's all chalk, nothing really happens. And I think it's interesting though how a team can drop so many spots, but yet they won't move a team past other teams. Like, I mean, did we really learn anything or ascertain anything with Alabama beating, Tennessee State or whatever? I think we learned a lot more about Florida State, but it is week 1. And so Florida State could go out there and have a dud against Clemson, right? And it all will be back to normal in the world. But let's go to our Homer Hour. Let's talk about our teams before we head into this week. So why don't we start with Notre Dame since we've already talked about Blacksburg at the top?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So obviously Notre Dame moved to 2-0 with the win over Tennessee State. I tell you what, though, they got off to a little bit of a slow, sluggish start. Tennessee State came out fired up as to be expected, I think, in that opportunity. And they were a little better at certain positions than I think Notre Dame was ready for. And they did a few different things schematically that Notre Dame wasn't expecting. And I was, as frustrating as it was because of what you expected going in, I was a little I was kind of happy to see them meet a little bit of adversity and have to all right, let's get our heads out of our rear ends and get it together a little bit. And they did it rather quickly. And then things took off from there. And I was happy to see that because traditionally, like under Brian Kelly, you wouldn't always see that. It seemed like Notre Dame always played to the level of their opponents and more so in the downward fashion. They always played down to the level of their opponents. Rarely would they play up to the level of the elite opponents, but so they took care of business. This week they traveled to NC State. Last week, NC State just sort of snuck by UConn, which was, I'm a little higher on UConn than a lot of people are, but there's also a lot of people who aren't very impressed with that victory, my father being one of them. And so I think there's some folks expecting Notre Dame's going to go in here and steamroll NC State, and I don't think that's going to be the case for a couple of reasons. One reason is you don't have to talk a team into being motivated to play Notre Dame, right? I mean, they're just polarizing, and everybody wants to knock off whether it's Notre Dame, Alabama, whatever, the big names in college football. So you're not going to have to worry about NC State not being focused or motivated. 2, they've got 2 of the better coordinators in all of college football. I've heard some people say that if you just took, you look around, some programs have like an A+ offensive coordinator, like a C defensive coordinator, or vice versa. Where in this case, they've got like 2 B+ coordinators. So like collectively, they're very strong coordinators. And Notre Dame's going to have to be able to run the football. If they can do that, it's going to open everything else up. And then the weather could be a factor. They're calling for possible rain off and on, but I don't think that's really going to impact the game. I don't think that hurts Notre Dame because they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. I mean, they're not one-dimensional, so they'll be fine. So
And Hartman played at Wake Forest too, so like he's played in that kind of stuff before.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it rained in Dublin when they played Navy, and it was kind of sloppy, and it didn't impact them at all. So when you're playing at that level, you can't be impacted by the weather. That's just if you're an elite team, elite athlete.
The pros are impacted by the weather.
Well, you know what I'm saying. Mentally, anyways. I mean, obviously, the elements have a factor or have an effect on different things, but it can't be used as an excuse, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Agreed.
Um, no, but this is a solid NC State team. It's a team that Notre Dame should beat. I kind of would like to see Notre Dame be pushed a little bit just because I want to see what they're made of. I want to see what sort of adjustments they can make. It's a weird thing maybe to ask for, but
Not really.
at the end of the day, if Notre Dame is the type of team that they're hoping to be, they should be able to go in here and win this game by a couple of scores. And take care of things defensively. But they've got a really good quarterback. He can use his legs. He's a lefty, so he's a little unorthodox. I could see that possibly causing some problems with some of the pressure that Notre Dame's brought in the first 2 weeks. It might open up some big running lanes. So we'll see what sort of adjustments Notre Dame makes defensively. Overall, though, I'm expecting a victory. Anything less would be extremely disappointing. Just in what fashion it happens, to be determined.
I mean, I think it's not that weird to want to see your team pushed earlier than maybe its biggest game because you want to see how the team is going to gel together in this. And that's the other thing about Colorado from earlier is they have seen some adversity because TCU kept coming back, kept scoring, kept taking the lead, and they kept on coming, right? They weren't pushed off of their game plan. And I think that if you have, unless the team is that good, right? You want to see them challenged at some point and see when they're going to be able to flip that switch that great teams end up doing when they can overcome that adversity, whether it's NC State or somebody else. I mean, it's going to happen this season, but hey, you'd like to think that they can be challenged, like say in the first half, and then they kind of take over and take care of business in the second half. I personally don't think NC State is a world beater in that conference, and so I believe that they should be able to take care of business because I just think that Hartman is too experienced. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, he's 24. And I'm like, so what? He's experienced. Like, it doesn't matter how old he is. It doesn't matter if he's going to be an NFL prospect. He's playing at Notre Dame right now. And that's all that matters. And so that's all that you want to see. Like, stop making it. I hate that stuff when people
it's not like it's cheating. Like,
yeah, it's not cheating. Everybody made fun of Stetson Bennett last year. I get that he is on the older side for quarterbacks, but guess what? He won 2 national titles and he doesn't give a crap what you think about how old he was. So it doesn't matter. If Notre Dame wins the national title, all this he's 24 stuff will be out the window. You can talk about that next year when Hartman is gone, but he's here now. He's playing quarterback for you, and he's playing well. So I think that Notre Dame is going to win and keep this streak going. I think it's going to be a bit before we see them really, truly challenged. At least that's what you hope, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah. So we will be here for that, and we will see how it goes. But let's hope that they continue this run. As for the Hokies, interestingly enough, we get the win last week, and I was there in person, and they looked a little bit better than I thought that they would. The run defense was a little bit shaky, but then again, Old Dominion's quarterback was so bad that they almost were running, as Mike said, oh, they're running the Air Force offense. Run, punt. Like, that's pretty much what was happening. And they were getting success on the ground because I think that's all that they were really doing and having success. But the Hokies got some turnovers. Grant Wells played better than I thought that he was going to based off how he started. It was very inaccurate. Last year, I think he was 59%, which is terrible at a college level in terms of accuracy. But he did really well on the long balls. And it's funny, though, because Virginia Tech seemed very conservative at the beginning. Their run game, you know what I'm saying? When a run game feels lethargic, it seems like even the inside runs take a long time to materialize. And that's not what you want. You want those guys hitting that gap right away so that they can take advantage of the like half a second of space that they have. And it didn't seem like that was happening. But when they started going down the field, Grant Wells started being more accurate. So they pulled away from Old Dominion and got the win in, and they covered. Interestingly enough, they have Purdue this week, and they have them in Blacksburg, and somehow they're like a 3-point favorite at home, which is kind of baffling to me. But then again, Purdue lost a game last week that they weren't supposed to lose, and they lost a lot from last season. When they went to the Big Ten title game, Aiden O'Connell is now a Las Vegas Raider, so maybe Purdue isn't as advertised, and as you said, the Big Ten has a lot of weak teams in it. Hey, maybe the Hokies can steal a win at home against the Big Ten squad, and then maybe this season doesn't look quite so bad. I do think that they are somewhat improved. I think that the team now, they did some good transfer portal work. I think Brent Pry actually has a culture that seems to be building there. Like, you can kind of tell that the way that he coaches the team, he's part of the team. I was talking to some people that were local, and they were saying how when Fuente was there, even though he lived in town, he didn't participate in any of the local town activities. And when you're in a college town, that stuff matters. Whereas Brent Pry is going to all the student functions. He's basically handshaking in town. He's part of the community. There is an annual thing that happens on campus, which is whenever there's the first snowfall, the Corps of Cadets and the civilians have a snowball fight against each other. Brent Pry showed up for that. That's the kind of stuff that you want to see out of the head coach, right? He's a pillar in the community. He's not just there as a CEO. And from what I understand, Fuente was kind of not really having any of that. And so I think they are building something there, and I would love to see him steal a win this week.
It's funny you say that because there's some parallels between the way he's handling things and the way that Marcus Freeman's handled them since he's been at Notre Dame. Because pretty much once football season was over, Brian Kelly was not seen in South Bend on the campus of Notre Dame. And where Marcus Freeman is, he's at hockey games, he's at basketball games, men's and women's, he's at baseball games, soccer games. I mean, he is a big supporter of all the different sports and what they're doing. And so, I mean, he's a pillar of the community, like you said, and he is on campus amongst the people. And I think that's really important. So getting to the Hokies, though, yeah, I wouldn't surprise to see them as favorites coming into this week. Purdue didn't look great. They lost to Fresno State. Now, Fresno's no slouch, but still it's a game that a Big Ten team is supposed to win at home. So, now you have Purdue coming in as a, maybe a little hungry coming off that loss, feeling like they have something to prove, kind of to get back, get one in the win column before things, the wheels fall off and things start going downhill fast. Before they even get into conference play. So I feel good about it. I think it'd be nice if the Hokies could put a couple together. I feel good, though. I think that they could cover tomorrow and go 2 in a row and one more, 3 in a row. That's what we call winning streak. So let's see if the Hokies can get on one.
That would be really nice. But the other thing that you said on Saturday, no, 2 things you said. Number 1, Enter Sandman never disappoints. 100% true. And number 2, and I think you agreed with it, is that the Virginia Tech fan base is a extremely hungry fan base that is just waiting to be relevant again. And if they ever get to relevancy again, Lane Stadium is going to be one of the toughest places to play in all of college football because that stadium is ready and that crowd was ready. And that's why I was happy because we're there and you could just tell like everything is buzzing. And I was like, I hope that they play well so that this feeling lasts longer than a half or lasts longer than the first quarter. And it went all the way to the end of the game. It's nice to hear the cannons firing from across campus. We left a little bit early because the game was in hand and we had to make sure our car was out of the parking lot by a certain time. But it was nice to feel that. So I'm with you. I hope that we see a victory for both our squads. But let's move on to the other week 2 storylines. I think the biggest game of the weekend has to be Texas at Alabama. I asked at the top, is Texas for real or is Texas back? And last year, you and I were both convinced that Saban and the boys were just going to run roughshod over the Longhorns in Texas. And it was a very, very close victory. And now Texas is coming back at full strength. Remember, they did not have their quarterback last year. He got hurt. And I think this could be interesting because I have to say, in a season that we've been in, 3 weeks now, this is the first time we've mentioned Nick Saban's name.
It is. And I mean, I don't know how much we want to get into predictions because I know we're going to talk about this one during crunch time.
Yeah.
But I feel like, said Texas is coming in this game full strength. Obviously, they have a little chip on their shoulder because there are a lot of people out there in the sports media and everywhere else that are doubting them, right? It's like a joke, right? Texas is back. Texas is back. And I think they might be, though. I think this could be the year that really catapults them back onto the national stage in a meaningful way. I don't really like this Alabama team that much. I know they're really talented. I know they've got the GOAT as their head coach. I know all of those things. And I maybe part of it is I don't have a lot of faith in Tommy Rees because of my experiences with him at Notre Dame. He, again, not a bad football coach. I just thought he was more into trying to impress people with how much he knew than he was into just like scheming to try to win football games. And, I think they didn't, not that Texas has beaten anybody relevant at this point either, but the win over Middle Tennessee isn't enough to sit there and say, okay, wait a minute, I might have been wrong about Alabama. So I don't know, man, I'm feeling pretty good about Texas.
Yeah. I mean, the only
mostly
thing
a gut feeling. I don't have a lot of concrete data to like support my position.
The only thing they have going against them is they needed the games to be in reverse, right? They needed that close game to be in Tuscaloosa last year and get the next matchup in Texas, but it's in reverse. So they're going to have to go on the road to do this. I think that they're capable enough of doing this, but here's the thing, right? I see Texas the same way that I see the Miami Dolphins. It's been so long since we've seen them put it together. I mean, the Vince Young National Championship game, best college game I've probably ever seen. It's what, 2006? So it's been a while. We're in 2023, almost 2024. Can they be trusted with a game like this? Can they be trusted with a win like this? Because over the last few years, they haven't been. And this is early in the season. If you're going to get a Nick Saban squad, it's got to be early on in the season because Nick Saban is a veteran coach. He's seasoned. He's seen a lot of things. And normally his teams finally get that continuity. So if Texas can't do it now, then I don't know what to say because this is their bar, right? This is the litmus test. Is Texas going to make the playoff? Now, our boy Budge said, now, of course, he said Clemson was going to win the national title. Now he's actually making another prediction that the winner of this game is going to be one of the 4 in the playoff. I think that's a huge step to make for Texas because I just don't know that we know enough. And as you know, former Saban coaches or assistants are not very good against the big man.
I mean, Kirby Smart's done okay.
Yes, but that's recent. But I think
Right.
I think
True.
they're like
Traditionally,
2 and
you're right.
28 or something like that against him. Wait, the
Yeah.
numbers are not in favor of anybody that's not Kirby Smart, basically.
Sure. No, that's fair. And I think that we'll see. I think it's going to be a great football game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I don't know. We can talk about our picks here during crunch time a little bit, but I think it's going to be a good college football game, and I plan on making sure I can watch a little bit. I don't know what time is that game at? Do you know?
I think it's at 12. I think it's an early
Shit,
game.
it's the same time as Notre Dame game. I'm gonna have dual TVs in the living room tomorrow.
Somebody on here look that up for us, will you please?
What time the Texas Alabama game is? Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Let me see our. Oh no, wait. I don't have an intern. I can't ask anybody to do that. Yeah, no kidding. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Letitia. She is a Texas grad. She loves everything about Longhorns, and she wanted me to say this on, and I will hook them. Okay, so there you go. I said it for her live on the feed. You all heard it. She's a dear friend of mine.
I don't know, Nick. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. She's just a dear friend of mine. She loves Texas football, and I have to give her a little bit of love. That's what this show is about, man.
Sure. Well, who knows, man? Maybe Jonah's got the Roll Tide there. Maybe he'll be coming in next week with the horns down. We'll see.
Yeah. So,
hell, you did a hook 'em and horns down all back to back.
Jonah said
6 p.m.
Yeah, 6 p.m. for everybody on Central Time, 6 p.m. So it'll be later, and we'll be able to catch that. So good stuff there. Now, the other game I think that is not nearly on the national scale, but I think is going to have just about everybody watching is Nebraska traveling to Boulder to face them boys in Colorado. Interestingly enough, this matchup harkens back to the 90s when both of these programs were good and both of these programs were highly relevant. And I believe Colorado even won a national title off of one of these years, one of these matchups. This is not that. So the interesting part is I think we both assumed that they would be in reverse. Matt Rule would get a win against PJ Fleck on the road and kind of start his tenure in Nebraska off right. And Dion and the boys would be coming in licking their wounds, playing a better team. And the roles are reversed here. And Matt Rule may legitimately be looking at an 0-2 start to his Nebraska tenure. I think his leash is going to be a little bit longer, but I mean, these are two guys taking the reins of programs that needed a lot of help. And I just love how Dion is like, you know what? Nope, I'm going to skip to the head of the line. Boom. Beat a ranked team right out the gate. And Nebraska's coming in. I think that Colorado has the potential to put a lot of points on the board because Nebraska's offense looked pedestrian, and that's just saying it nicely.
Yeah, I mean, if Matt Rule is cooking with gas, right, and Lincoln, Nebraska, then Coach Prime is cooking with like jet fuel, right? Because I mean, he has got that thing moving, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I get it. Yep, right there. Colorado has no defense right now. Don't disagree.
Nope.
But I don't think Nebraska has much of an offense right now either, which will be interesting to see. And I don't know if Nebraska's defense can slow down that Colorado offense enough to make it a ball game, and it'll be something to watch. It's it stinks because I'm optimistic about both of these teams. Someone has to lose this game. In your opinion, what program would a loss be more detrimental to? And I don't think it's not going to break either of their backs, but like, what program would suffer the most from losing this game? Who's it hurt more?
I think that it hurts Nebraska more because I think that their boosters are hopeful for a more immediate turnaround, whereas Colorado is coming off of the good graces of last week, and you never want to lose your home opener. You never want to lose to what is seen as a rival. So a loss isn't great, but I think that if they lose a tight game or something like that, I don't think it's as soul crushing because of what happened last week. And I just believe, that Nebraska can't afford it because this is a program, like you said, they feel that college football is better when they're relevant and good. And if they start 0-2, that's exactly what happened last year with Scott Frost. So what's the difference?
I disagree with you and Joan on this one because I think that, like you said, Matt Rule's got a longer leash, right? Matt Rule hasn't been in the media building up his program to be this and that. He's just I don't know. And I'm excited about Matt Rule. I think he's going to be successful there. I think for Nebraska's sake, he has to be. Because I don't
There's
know where they
nowhere
go
they can
from. I don't
go.
know where they go from here, right?
Brian Kelly, if he gets
Um,
fired.
oh gosh. Um, I think it would hurt Colorado more because it would all of a sudden, if they lose to Nebraska, who just lost to Minnesota, in a game that there wasn't a lot of offense. It was kind of a sloppy, ugly game where neither team looked very good. If they lose at home to Nebraska after what they did last week, I think you're going to start hearing that was a fluke. And okay, it was a bottle rocket, right? They put it all together for one big game. And now we're going to see what they're really about when once the teams had some game film on them and had a chance to prepare and scheme for them. Because I think that, right, everyone expects, I think, Colorado win this game based off what we've seen out of both these teams in week one. So if Nebraska wins this game, I think it hurts Colorado more, at least in the public perception.
But which
Big
public?
picture.
Because I think that the fan base
Nationally, I would say.
I guess, but that would actually play into the narrative that people want them to fail because they've already gone out and had a win that's probably better than just about everybody except Florida State, right, last week. And I mean, I get what you're saying. That's why it's not an easy thing to pick. I'm thinking about it from a fan perspective, like those fans in Nebraska, maybe not the fans currently, but let's think about the old dusty fans of Nebraska, the ones who were around for the heyday. Are they really sitting
Literally
here?
the heyday.
Literally. Are they sitting here taking a loss from Deion Sanders, right? Here's the new guy in town, right? They go out because remember, Deion Sanders, I think, was linked to Nebraska at some point too. And they went with, I hate to say the safe choice in Matt Rule, but Matt Rule, you said I'm excited about Matt Rule, and I thought, has anybody ever said that ever? Like, is that he's just not he's not an exciting kind of guy. And that's all the point.
He's a very Nebraska guy.
Sure.
That's what I mean. He's just a good fit, I feel like.
Sure.
Yeah, Deion would not have been a good fit in Lincoln, Nebraska.
I think that the question you're asking is much more nuanced because I think at a national level, I certainly understand where you're coming from. Everybody's going to pile on nationally and on social media. Well, who cares about that, right? I think locally, the loss, obviously, it bums out Colorado fans. But keep in mind, they had one of those wins last year. One. That's all that they got.
Yeah,
so
they probably had lower expectations coming into the season, where Nebraska fans are a little more unrealistic.
And I think nationally, though, Nebraska, nobody cares. So, like, if they lose, like, who cares? It's just another Nebraska loss, move on. I think locally, though, because you talk all the time about boosters. Like, boosters want to get rid of these guys so quickly. They'll pay. And I think that the boosters at Nebraska right now, like, their checkbooks are kind of sitting around because they're not going to sit here through all this stuff. And I just don't think that they want to lose to a guy like Deion Sanders. I just don't.
No, they certainly don't. And I can understand or see both sides of this argument because I do think that more so in the national media, Colorado will take the hit if they lose.
Oh, yeah.
As far as an actual program and the morale around the program, yes, in that sense, I think it hits Nebraska harder. because I don't think there's a lot of I mean, I think there was hope and optimism coming into the season from Colorado fans, but I don't think that there were a lot of expectations.
Oh, are you kidding
It
me?
was sort of a let's see what happens.
Last week was like my old boss was texting me. He's like, I don't even know what I'm watching. Like, it's been that long since Colorado has won a meaningful football game that he's like, I don't even know how to react. And so I get it. A loss sucks. And your dad is right though. Like, the national media, the way that the thing is, the way that Deion Sanders is in today's society is ripe for people getting on you when you don't perform. And the expectation is perfection. Like, it doesn't matter when he loses. They're going to pile on. Even if he went to the national championship game and lost, they'd be like, see, you couldn't bring it home.
Because of how loud he is when they win, everyone else is going to be loud when they lose. But that's the way
Yes,
it goes, man. That's
it is.
that's the game you play when you want to be outspoken. And I'm not saying he's wrong for being as outspoken as he is,
That's who
because
he is.
like Ryan told me last week, I mentioned on the show, he's talked a lot over his career, but you know what he's always done? He's always
Delivered.
backed it up, man. Yep, 100%.
That does actually matter. And the thing that he has done that is unequivocally true, it has people caring about Colorado football.
Sure. 100% it does, man. Like, I mean, literally, and I know that there's a lot more that went into that game other than those, uh, what are they playing? Those 60 minutes, right?
Yep.
But in 60 minutes, he changed the perception of an entire program, right? In 60 minutes. It's
Yes.
unbelievable, man. It's really powerful when you think about it. Now, that's another reason why I think it's so important they win this game, because you want to build on that and keep it rolling. And so I
You're
don't know.
not wrong. You're not wrong. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Let's move on to another game that I will be perfectly honest with you. I know nothing about either of these teams, but this matchup intrigues me because Lane Kiffin is on one side, and you got the Tulane Green Wave silently at number 24 hosting Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss is a team, from what I understand, having looked it up, they don't really have consecutive good seasons. So I feel like in the SEC, they are ripe to have kind of like a mediocre season. And I feel like this Tulane team, who used to be in the SEC, isn't being taken seriously. And here comes Lane and the boys, and nobody's giving them a chance. And this matchup intrigues me because New Orleans is fun. This team could be a lot of fun, and this could be a sneaky game of the week.
Well, Tulane was in a New Year's Six game last year, so I don't think that they're going to sneak up on anybody. But
No,
like,
but nobody really
still,
cared about them, though.
sure, you're right. No, you're not wrong. And I think I like Lane Kiffin because I didn't like him early in his career because I think he blew up fast. He kind of just had one of those personalities that rubbed you the wrong way, but he got humbled and he kind of had to start back at the bottom and work his way back up to where he's at now. And I feel like it's sort of changed his personality for the better in a lot of ways. And
Let me ask you something
sure.
real quick. Which of the times do you think actually humbled him? Do you think it was getting fired on the tarmac or getting left at the national championship game?
Oh, I don't know, man. Like,
Because
I just think
if
it's a
getting fired on the
culmination.
tarmac isn't it, then like, where do you go from there? It's amazing that he's had two of those kinds of moments, and then it's like, oh, he's humble now.
It's incredible he got those jobs. Like, that's what I look back. I'm like, man, like, look at the jobs that dude had, right? Tennessee, USC, the Raiders. Like, and a lot of it, I'm sure, is because of who his dad is and who you know and connections. And that's the way the world works. But connections just get you in the door. You know, you got to deliver once you get in there. And obviously, he struggled to do that.
My man, Jonah, talking to the cheerleaders, that's exactly the route that you need to be taking, my man.
Heck yeah, man. All right. Good for Jonah.
That's right.
No, I think that first, I'm going to give him credit. I'm going to give Lane Kiffin credit for playing this game, right? For going to New Orleans and playing this game on Tulane's home field, man. Kudos to him for doing that because a lot of programs won't do that. And, you know, I don't know. I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a competitive football game. I do tend to favor maybe Ole Miss a little bit, but I just don't think that Tulane's got the firepower they had last year. And I just like Lane Kiffin, man. I just got a soft spot for the guy a little bit. I'm kind of hopeful he can get Ole Miss rolling a little bit and maybe start making a run for the SEC here at some point.
This could be one of those sneaky like 45-41 games. That's why I like these kind of matchups, because I feel like I didn't even look at the over under, but I just think like this could be one of those kind of games. And I love those kind of games. You kind of need those sprinkled in every once in a while. I mean, I know we got that last week with Colorado and TCU, but like these are two teams that couldn't probably be further apart in terms of where they are in the national scale. Ole Miss is looking to actually make noise in the SEC. They have bigger fish to fry. And Tulane is like, this is a real opportunity for us to beat an actual SEC team and kind of move up. I would love to see a super high scoring game because Lane Kiffin's all about offense. So I'm hopeful. But that matchup kind of intrigues me because Tulane's not a team you really see in the top 25 very often. They're on a nice little run. And hey, if they win this game, maybe they end up being one of those teams that we kind of gravitate toward.
Yeah, group of 5 powerhouse, man. You got to give it to them. Kind of like, Cincinnati, well, Boise State's been in that conversation for a while. So maybe Tulane wants to establish themselves as one of those programs.
Absolutely. And the last game is your boy, Jimbo Fisher, in a program in Miami that's always back, similar to Texas. Last year, I believe Texas A&M hosted Miami and lost, and Jimbo Fisher had what can only be considered a disastrous season with the recruiting class that he had. A lot of this team is back from last year. I'm assuming he got another good recruiting class, and big things are expected in College Station. And Jimbo Fisher has got to deliver, because if he doesn't, those A&M boosters are not waiting around.
No, I think both of these teams are expected to deliver this year, right? You have Mario Cristobal in year 2. I think you're expecting to see significant progress, right? That the things are headed in the right direction.
Yes.
And Jimbo is essentially coaching for his job every week at this point. I feel like at least that's how it should be. I don't know if that's reality in College Station, but that's how it should be. I'm surprised he's still employed there, to be honest. So both teams have a lot to play for, or maybe I should say both coaches have a lot to coach for. Obviously, Cristobal's job's not on the line in this game, but depending on how it goes, man, it could be on the line for old Jimbo. And it's funny. I look at it as like a coach that's hard to root for versus a program that's hard to root for in Miami a little bit. But like Mario Cristobal, I don't have any beef with that guy. He seems like a good dude. Did a really nice job at Oregon for years. So, and I do, again, to talk about what we talked about last week, I do think that college football is better when the U is relevant. I just think it adds another element to things.
It's just sad that they are where they are, but this is Cristobal's dream job. Like, he has the Cuban descent, the connections with Miami and South Florida, and I think that he has a little bit, maybe longer of a leash than some of the other coaches that they've had. But I think you're right. Like, you want to see that upward trajectory. And I personally believe that Jimbo Fisher at the end of the season won't have a job, because I just don't think that he is going to make the kind of program that he was able to make in that 1 year at Florida State. He got Jameis Winston. Everything went right. And I think that he was able to parlay that into an SEC job. And good for him. I'm not here to judge and say, like, he shouldn't have taken that job. Like, good for you, Jimbo. Take all of that money to the bank with you. I just don't think that Texas A&M is a relevant school in the SEC the way that they think that they are. And I think that these kind of games that come up, the more he loses them, the more leverage he has. And I'm telling you right now, those boosters are going to be all over him if they lose this game. And it's not going to surprise me if they lose this game either, because they're coming in at 21, 23, and that's flimsy at best because we don't really know. It's been 1 week. But Cristobal, though, he needs this, right? He needs this in year 2 of the program. I know he got it last year, but you want to see that upward trajectory. This is his first recruiting class coming in, and you want to see that win. You have to excuse me. I am like dying over here.
You're doing great, man. You're hanging in there again, like we talked about at the beginning, battling through a little bit of adversity.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's getting bad now.
I'm with you though, man. The Sharks are circling in College Station, just waiting. I guarantee you, man, like there's going to be a guy like sitting in the president's suite with his checkbook out, just ready to write the check for the buyout if things go south in this game. Like
it's already written out. It's just the amount, right?
Yeah.
Like that's all that's there. Because I'm telling you, like that, it's not even the fan base, right? Like I think the fan base at Texas A&M is fairly reasonable. Like I've never met a Texas A&M fan where I'm like, God, I hate that person, or that person is so obnoxious. But I think the boosters are a different story. And you saw that in the Johnny Manziel thing. Like they have him back honoring him because he played one good season of football. It matters to them.
Sure. Hot take.
Oh, yes, please.
The 12th man at Texas A&M is one of the most overrated college football traditions that there is, in my opinion.
Dropping the bomb on us right there. I think the history of it and how it came about is neat, but as far as something that's tangible, I mean, it's just a butt ton of people, right, in the stands. I mean, they do that in Seattle too.
Yeah, they do it. They do it all across the country every week. Like what they're doing is not special, I guess, or unique. I feel like I said, I feel like it's happening on campuses across the country every Saturday.
Yes. So there you go. Those are 4 games that intrigued us about week 2. Let us know in the comments which games you are intrigued by. And there's a lot of action every single week, so we will be sure to try and break down as much as possible. But in the time that we have, we get to the games that are interesting to us. All right, buddy, before we get into crunch time, which I'm hopeful that my voice will be okay for, do you have a game that intrigues you this week in your coach or your gritty game of the week?
Oh my goodness, man!
Speaking of which, what happened last week? What was the game? I forget
so
the
game we
you
talked
picked.
about last week was Illinois and Toledo.
That's
And
right.
Illinois was not impressive. They snuck by Toledo, almost needing overtime to do so. And that was a game I thought they were going to have to win with some sort of
Heroics.
authority. I mean, that was a game I
yeah.
thought they needed to win convincingly to sort of prove they were on the path to improvement, especially to being what some people are expected to be like a middle to upper tier Big Ten team. And they are not doing themselves any favors tonight. They are currently down 34-13 at Kansas, and that's
The Jayhawks
towards the end of the third quarter. Yeah, I mean it was 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. I mean Kansas got off to a fast start, and it looks like they've never looked back. So I think that it might not be the season that some of the Illinois fans were hoping for. And that's kind of a bummer, man, because it's nice, especially living in Central Illinois. It's just nice to have that buzz, people around being more excited about it. Everybody's always excited about college football, but it would be nice. I don't know. Be nice that if they had something locally to be more excited about.
Yes. And by the way, I'm barely hanging on for this comment here, which is now J-Dog. I thought that was a different person. I got really excited for a second. It's just Jonah. It's just changed his name. Yes. Anyway.
As far as this week, though, I mean, there's a couple games to keep an eye on. I'll throw 2 out there for you. One is Utah's visiting Baylor. I think that it's going to be. I mean, Baylor's not great right now, but can Utah capitalize on their big win at home against Florida and go out there and look like a top 15 team against a major opponent again? And then Troy on the road at Kansas State. Troy is Budge's like New Year's 6 pick out of the group of 5, and so I think that's one to look out for a potential upset is Troy in the Little Apple of Manhattan, Kansas against the Wildcats.
All right, so definitely something to looking forward to because I can't imagine Manhattan, Kansas is that great of a place to be at. It certainly doesn't seem like there's a lot going on there, but Kansas State is always one of those teams that I feel like we doubt, but hey, Big 12 champions last year, so you can't doubt them, but you never know. Every week, any given Saturday, any given Sunday. But by the way, before we get to crunch time, buddy, I brought something up. I made something just for you, and there you go. We're tracking this stuff now because I know we are a highly advanced show now. You saw that new intro. We're trying to get incrementally better, and what way to do that than a little bit of accountability. So you and I last week, not great at all. Even though we had some differing picks, we had differing picks that just did not work out. So we're starting off on the losing end of things, but because there are 10 games every single week, we have the ability to come back. So I think as we track this every single week, it'll be nice to see how we did the previous week and then compare it to how we are doing all across the board. And with that in mind, I think it is time to get to it, don't you think?
Yes, sir. Let's fire it up, man.
That's right. That sound means it is time for Crunch Time, where we go back and forth, rat-a-tat-tat through 10 games. With the NFL season now underway, we have a lot more games to pick from. Coach, you said you were ready. Let us go and fire it up. Starting in college football, number 20, Ole Miss, traveling to number 24, Tulane on Saturday. As we mentioned earlier, Ole Miss is a 7.5-point favorite in this game. I'm going to take Ole Miss with the experience. What about you, Coach?
Iceman, I'm with you on this one. I told you I like Lane Kiffin and the boys. Give me the Rebels to cover.
Nebraska traveling to now ranked 22 Colorado in Boulder. It is going to be a madhouse in Boulder on Saturday. Colorado is a 3-point favorite. I like Colorado here by more than 3.
Yeah, like Coach Prime says, they're ranked in the top 25 now, and we coming, right? So here we go. Give me the Buffs, and I'll take the points.
Number 11, Texas, traveling to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to face Nick Saban and the number 3 Alabama Crimson Tide, who have barely been talked about on the national scale. This is on Saturday. They are a 14.5-point favorite, it looks like. And I just think that Alabama, they have too much skill. They have too much experience. And I think that Alabama's going to take it. And I'm not even sure if that spread's right because I forgot to update the sheet.
Yeah, there's no way that spread's right, I don't think. But I don't even care what the spread is. I'm going to take the Longhorns, man. I think that they've got what it takes this year. I'm not crazy about the Alabama team, like I said earlier. So hook 'em horns.
Fuck it, we're doing it live. And in what has to be one of the most boring games of the week, the battle for the state of Iowa. Iowa traveling to Iowa State on Saturday. Iowa is a 4-point favorite with an absolutely abysmal 36.5 over-under. I don't actually care who wins, but I think the Cyclones are going to take it because, damn, that Iowa offense is awful.
The Cy-Hawk series, man. It's great no matter what sport it is. It usually means a close game no matter how good or bad the teams are. You can throw the records out the window. But in this case, I'm going to take the Hawkeyes and give the 4 points.
Number 23, Texas A&M traveling to Coral Gables and facing the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday. Texas A&M is a 4-point favorite. I do not trust Jimbo and the boys. Give me the Hurricanes to wash them out.
There's something powerful about desperation, and I feel like A&M has that by the truckload right now. So I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the Aggies -4.
And last in college football, number 19, Wisconsin, traveling to the Pacific Northwest to face the Cougars of Washington State and Old Crimson at game day. This is a Saturday night game, way late. Wisconsin is a 6.5-point favorite on the road. Washington State, though, man, they're going to catch them sleeping. Give me the Cougars in an upset.
Wow, bold pick. I think that Wisconsin looked pretty solid in week 1. I had no problems with how they played, and I think it's only up from here for those guys. I think they win, and that 6.5 won't even be close.
Switching to the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off a Super Bowl berth, are at New England to face the Patriots and Bill Belichick. It is on Sunday. The Eagles are 4-point favorites. The Eagles are vastly superior to the Patriots, even though Bill Belichick kind of makes that gap not as far. Give me the Eagles in a cover.
It seems like Super Bowl runner-ups, right, have a hard time bouncing back in the following season. I feel like the Patriots really have to get things rolling if they're going to go up from here with Belichick. Otherwise, it could get ugly. So I'm going to take the Pats to cover the 4 points.
The San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy, the now starting quarterback, go to Pittsburgh to face Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. This is on Sunday. The 49ers come in as 2.5-point favorites. Brock Purdy is a big question mark to me. I think that they're putting a lot of faith in a guy who did really well doing just enough last year. Mike Tomlin is a seasoned coach. Give me the Steelers to win at home.
I think the 49ers are too good, and I don't have a problem with them putting all this faith in Brock Purdy because I think more and more at the pro level we're seeing that the quarterback talent isn't as important maybe as the coach talent. And when you have a guy like Kyle Shanahan, this guy just plugs and plays and wins football games. So give me the Niners to cover.
The Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel travel to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. They're a team that I just cannot trust despite the fact that Justin Herbert is so good. Give me Tua and the Dolphins on the road.
I like this, man. We're disagreeing a bunch this week. That's a long ways to go. Even traveling across the country for the pros is a tall task, and I just feel like this is the year the Chargers finally take that step and are the team that people have expected them to be. Give me the Bolts to cover the 3.
And last, the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. Monday Night Football, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites. You know what? Aaron Rodgers is not going to take that sitting down. Jets, Jets, Jets.
I gotta apologize to Cleve, man. I don't feel like the Jets are gonna have it together yet. I think they'll be solid this year, but the Bills, they're just too much, and they'll have no problem going into New York and ruining Rodgers' first game as a Jet. I'll take the Bills to cover.
Oh, man, we disagreed on almost every single pick on that one, my man. But I think it's going to be fun because the more we disagree, the more these records kind of go by the wayside. And I think that it's just a fun activity that we do. And I think you and I could both be super wrong or super right. And some weeks we're just going to go up and down as witness. But I'll tell you what, it's good to be back. It is good to have crunch time back and to kind of have all these games to look forward to, my man. So somehow, again, we have reached up to an hour and 15 minutes, man. I don't know how we do it. Every time. We don't even plan it this way. Everything goes and boom, we're ready to go.
Yeah, it flies by. We have a ton to talk about. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about that we just don't have time to get to. So it's been a blast. We get full week 1 NFL this weekend on top of a nice, impressive college football slate. So excited. This weekend here in Central Illinois, the weather's starting to cool off a little bit. I mean, we'll get like Indian summer, here in a month where it's going to be 90 degrees again. But it's going to be like 70, and next weekend, and then maybe the upper 60s. It's going to be beautiful fall weather to have the windows open, watching football all day. I cannot wait.
Yeah, me too, man. And we're so close to this weather evening out because I'm just not here for this hot weather anymore. Like, I'm over it. I'm done.
Yep.
I want to be wearing long sleeves, hoodies, and everything. But we've got to endure the month of September down here in the DMV because it was like 95 today. Like, no wonder I'm sick because this is ridiculous. Like, the month ends in Burr. It should be friggin' cold out. That's all I've got to say, right? Let's just give it to me. That's all I'm asking for with this global warming stuff. Whatever. It's screwing with my whole life. Well, a little bit of accounting before we get out of here for this week. Don't forget, if you want to follow us on social media, there are plenty of avenues in which to do that. On TikTok, at INC Sports is the handle. Twitter, at Iceman and Coach is the handle. Twitter, X, whatever the hell it is. You can find us on Facebook, INC Sports. That is where we go live, and one of the places we go live every single week. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff. It's very much appreciated because it's how we keep growing. We just hit 250 subscribers on YouTube, my man. We are going, holla,
we
right?
Coming. We coming.
I just want to say for transparency, when we did the Super Bowl show, we had 9 and we're at 251. So you got to start somewhere, and that's where we are here. Matty Ice Media Network, the website's going to be coming back hopefully this week. It's going to look a lot similar to what you had before. Hopefully we can have some merch up there and make it a little bit more user-friendly for everybody going forward. I've had a great time, my man. I think that this is a wonderful use of time, and it gets me excited every single week. And you know what? I would say that I'm happy to watch game day tomorrow, but somehow I managed to let everybody, myself included, schedule James' soccer at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
That's all right though, man. There's no worries there. You'll be home in time to catch kickoff of the games, so that'll be fun. Hey, I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm proud of you for hanging in there. I know there was a struggle. You showed some real toughness, though, some real mental toughness, fortitude, coming through things today. So I appreciate that.
What can I say?
Yeah, it's been a blast. No, excited for another weekend of football to provide another wonderful week of sports content.
That's right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. I hope this finds you well and safe. We will see you next week. This is another College Kickoff Eve. Bye, everybody.